This is the New Writer Podcast. I'm Matt Brotherton, and each week I detail my journey as a storyteller in hopes it encourages other writers struggling to live their dreams. Show notes and videos can be found at newwriterpodcast.com. And now, here's the show. New Writer Podcast, episode 25. This week, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my new project, the big picture concept, where I'm at, and some of the tools I've used to get there. But first, the weekly update. This week, I've had 34 downloads of Choices, as well as 7 total sales of other books on Amazon, netting me a grand total of $12.67 on Amazon and nothing on any other platform. This isn't exactly surprising considering I've made a grand total of about $20 on all of the platforms combined since I started publishing in March of last year, all of the non-Amazon platforms. I've been doing quite a bit of writing this week, including once again experimenting with Dragon Naturally Speaking. I've managed to write over 15,000 words, and I attribute that mostly to getting back into the habit of using 750words.com. If you're not familiar, 750words.com is a website with a similar concept as morning pages. The idea is to write 3 pages or 750 words of free writing every day just to form the habit of writing and clear your mind from the clutter. What kicked me back into using it was with Dictation, was signing up for a monthly challenge, which is a non-binding contract to write every single day for a month. When you join the challenge, you set 2 terms. One reward you'll give yourself if you achieve the goal of writing every day for the month. The other is what you'll do if you fail. For me, if I manage to write every day in July, I get to see Ant-Man, assuming it's still in theaters 2 weeks after the release date. I hope so. I love Paul Rudd. I expect this movie to do well and be around until the middle of August, easily. If I fail, I'll donate $25 to 750words.com. The service is free, and donations keep the doors open, so I feel like the obligation to donate money to them in the event that I fail kind of is a win-win for me. As of recording this episode on the 10th of July, I haven't missed a day yet, and I don't intend to. And most days this week, or at least 2 days this week, I've learned that you can only cap 5,000 words in their system without being a paying member, and I've hit that twice. And one of my goals is I'd like to start hitting that every single day. I'd like to push myself to write 5,000 words every day. I'm not there yet, but I'd like to be. I also have been experimenting with Dragon Naturally Speaking again, which is a really weird way of writing. It takes a lot to get used to dictation, especially when you have to speak the punctuation. But I think it might be worth it. When I did my 750 words using dictation software yesterday, I was able to do it in 4 minutes. It came out to something like 183 words per minute, which is almost double my standard typing rate. I type about 96 words a minute, so if I was able to maintain that speed for over an hour, I'd be able to do like 10,980 words per hour, which is just stupid insane. So naturally, I have a new goal. One of the things I've been doing with my time is doing like a 10-minute dictation word sprint, just ignoring the punctuation. Speaking punctuation really ruins my flow, and I'm already having a hard time writing fiction with just my voice. And so it's a pretty big goal on my list though, so I'm planning to keep working at it. I'd really like to get to the point where I can do dictation so that when I'm driving, I can record stories in my head instead of just like recording notes and then come back and have a thing done. Which brings me to my new project, actually. Since 7 Keys 5 is currently being proofread, and my outlined romance novel is possibly developing into a collaboration, I needed something completely different to work on. I decided to try my hand on another genre that I love to read, which is space opera. Now, if you follow me on Twitter or Facebook, you might have seen my word count screenshots from Scrivener, and the Scrivener file, the project file, calls this a space opera serial, and there's kind of a reason for that. I'm not planning on releasing the story in individual episodes currently, but I am writing it somewhat along the lines of those lines for a specific reason. I really want to do an audiobook. I've talked about that a lot, and I'd like to do it as a audiobook style. So what I'm doing is I'm developing the story into sections based on how long the audio version of the story would be. Right now, I'm operating under the assumed narration speed of about 125 to 150 words per minute. So what I'm doing is I'm dividing up the story into 10 7,000 word episodes, which would come out to roughly 50 to 55 minutes of audio, and I want each episode to have its own beginning, middle, and end while still fitting into an overall plot for the entire set. I haven't decided if I will release it as each episode as a separate book, but I'm leaning against it pretty heavily. Part of the reason is that taking it from one book to 10 multiplies the work by 10. 10 individual episodes is 10 individual covers, blurbs, formatting, etc., all that stuff. The real reason for doing this particular experiment is also to have fun with the audio format and experiment with that. And I'd rather be able to use a call to action at the end of each episode as go here to buy the complete book versus go here to buy this episode that you just listened to. On the other hand, there are a lot of reasons to try it as a serial, not the least of which is having 10 books in place of one, which is a series building technique that a lot of indie authors have had success with. It's just too early for me in the process of developing the story to decide. I'm still very much in the write as much as possible crap draft phase. So I might change my mind about all of this in the weeks to come as I close in on that 70,000 to 80,000 word overall story goal that I have. Which brings me to how I'm structuring the story and helpful tips for authors out there still trying to figure out plotting. I think I've established at this point that I'm a bit of a story grade convert. You can call me an acolyte of coins if you want. But the story grade is really established more for editing a manuscript that already exists rather than plotting out a new story. You definitely can use it to plot a new story, and it works really well for that. But I think there's a slightly better system for focusing on just the story part. And if you're a writer in the podcastosphere, you probably have heard of a podcast called Writing Excuses. And you've heard them talk about the 7-point story structure. Now, the 7-point story structure fits pretty well against the story grid, but it's more basic in its execution and it's more big picture. Whereas the story grid foolscap sheet breaks down a story into 15 points. Those points are roughly the same as the 7 points in the 7-point story structure, only more detailed and split into the 3-act structure. I've always struggled grasping the concept of the 7-point structure with my higher evolved man mind. Although I like to think of my cave-dwelling writer mind as had a pretty intuitive grasp on it. Even after listening to Writing Excuses for years, it just didn't click in my head all that well. Then I stumbled upon a lecture by Dan Wells on YouTube, and that lecture is broken into 5 parts and covers just about everything there is to know about the 7-point story structure, including examples of applying it to multiple genres, then layering multiple plots together to create a more fulfilling whole. I don't know if it was just watching the lecture series with Dan Wells or just the repetition of having the same idea brought to me over and over again. I am a visual learner, but something about it just finally broke through, and I had an epiphany in my high-functioning man mind this week that my lizard-eating writer mind went, well, duh. After watching the lecture, I felt more confident and comfortable with plotting a story, which is why I've decided to try my hand at a second serial. Now, I feel like each book and story I've written so far is a pretty big improvement for my craft, but I'm really hoping that I can make this new space opera story as like a turning point in my career. Like, I want this book to be good enough that I can start calling myself like a journeyman writer instead of an apprentice. Like, this wants to be the next stepping stone in my career as a writer. The part that actually helped me in the lecture, though, was about the stacking and spreading out multiple plots, which in the world of serials seemed even more important, especially considering I intend for each episode to have its own plot inside the meta plot of the overall series. So ultimately, what clicked into place was the idea of treating each episode's plot like a compressed subplot for the series overall. The concept is hard for me to express with words, which is a shame since I'm a writer. But I think if you watch the lecture series and pay attention to the visuals, you'll understand where I'm coming at. The way he breaks down the plot and subplots of The Matrix is really where everything just clicked into place for me. So that's been my week in my writing. Your homework, if you choose to accept it, is to go and watch Dan Wells' lecture on YouTube. The first part of the lecture can be found at newwriterpodcast.com/Dan-lecture, or by clicking in the links in the show notes or the comments on YouTube, the description on YouTube. Also, Book 5 of Seven Keys Saga is being released soon, and I could really use some reviews on the other books to help build a little more traction. So if you are so inclined, the first book of the series, Choices, is free on just about every platform. I would really love to hear what you honestly think about the story. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the New Writer Podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe on YouTube and iTunes. We welcome reviews and appreciate your feedback. If you have questions or would like to be on the show, please email us, contact@newwriterpodcast.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Have a nice night.